Hey everyone, welcome to Reality Report with Ryan, where I talk about news, politics, debunking fake news, the woke mind virus, all from the perspective of a center-right leaning man who happens to be gay, but don't worry, we're not the Rainbow Mafia over here. So like, subscribe, and join us to lose your mind as we are every single day. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Sorry I was gone for a couple of days. I had a sick cat and I had to have her put down. So it was a sad couple of days, but I'm back now. And we need to talk about everyone in America who actually cares about democracy, not just says they care about democracy, but actually cares about democracy, needs to know about this. Tulsi Gabbard dropped bombshell information, which of course, we all kind of knew that this was the case. But now we have 100% proof that Obama and team actually created the Russia hoax in 2016 all by themselves, knew that it wasn't true, and then Obama directed intelligence to create a whole new report stating that Russia did actually have involvement in Trump winning the 2016 election. So we're going to get into that. And then I'm also going to talk about what I think is going to happen after that regarding the law. Um, it, we'll get to that. And I also want to talk about Trump's new defamation lawsuit for $10 billion, y'all. $10 billion. So let's get into it. So I'm just going to go through this part really quick because I want to get to the part about what I think is going to happen regarding the law. So Tulsi Gabbard released this information. It's unsealed. I watched a lawyer go over the documents themselves already. So we're just going to go through this. Tulsi said, Americans will finally learn the truth about how in 2016 intelligence was politicized and weaponized by the most powerful people in the Obama administration. Go figure. To lay the groundwork for what was essentially a years-long coup against President Donald Trump, subverting the will of the American people and undermining our democratic republic, which they're still trying to do because there's still people in the deep state. Next. For months preceding the 2016 election, the intelligence community shared a consensus view Russia lacked the intent and capability to hack U.S. elections. But weeks after President Trump's historic 2016 victory, defeating Hillary Clinton, everything changed. So here's some little clips of the documents. We are working with the CIA on a PDB, which is a presidential daily briefing, submission on the threat. The thrust of the analysis is there is no indication of a Russian threat to directly manipulate the actual vote count through cyber means. We agree with Russia probably is not and will not try to influence the election by using cyber means to manipulate computer-enabled election infrastructure. We assess that foreign adversaries did not use cyber attacks on election infrastructure to alter the U.S. presidential election outcome this year. We have no evidence of cyber manipulation of election infrastructure intended to alter results. So that was their first report. And then on December 8th, 2016, IC officials prepared an assessment for the president's daily brief, finding that Russia did not impact recent U.S. election results. Before it could reach the president, it was abruptly pulled based on new guidance from the president, Barack Obama. This key intelligence assessment was never published, but it still exists, thank God. Russian and criminal actors did not impact recent U.S. election results by conducting malicious cyber activities against election infrastructure. Based on some new guidance, we are going to push back publication of the PDB, whatever it is, PDB. It will not run tomorrow and is not likely to run until next week or at all. The next day, top national security officials, including FBI Director James Comey, CIA Director John Brennan, and DNI James Clapper, gathered at the Obama White House to discuss Russia. Surprise, surprise. Obama directed the IC to create a new intelligence assessment that detailed Russian election meddling, even though it would contradict multiple intelligence assessments released over the previous several months. So, Obama directed them to make one up. The IC is prepared to produce an assessment per the president's request that pulls together the information that we have on the tools Moscow used and the actions it took to influence the 2016 election. I got a little crazy with my quotations. An explanation of why Moscow directed these activities and how Moscow's approach has changed over time, going back to 2008 and 2012. Okay. Odie and I will lead the effort with participation from CIA, FBI, NSA, and DHS. All of them, all of the intelligence is compromised. And some of these people that colluded with all of this and participated are still in those departments, y'all. We don't know exactly how many of them were involved in this, how many of them knew that our government was lying, that Barack Obama was lying, that our intelligence community was lying to us, and then proceeded to cover it up for the next 10 years, give or take, give or take. So you have everyone's names on here, everyone, all these people that are involved. Of course, there's more people that obviously are involved that are still they're still leaking information out of the intelligence community, trying to make Trump look bad, trying to make Pete Hegseth look bad, trying to make Kash Patel look bad, trying to make Tulsi Gabbard look bad, trying to make everyone that's trying to do the right thing look bad. So we have it here where obviously Barack Obama directed them to cover up the fact that Russia didn't even have the capability of interfering in the election. And to this very day, you can see Hillary Clinton in her little interviews still saying that this was Russian involvement, still saying that she's saying that the 2024 election had Russian involvement and that Trump's still an illegitimate president. But it's the Republicans that are election deniers, right? Right? I actually have a theory that I have never been like a super 2020 election was stolen. However, it's looking more and more and more and more like it actually was. And I'm sure we're going to get that unclassified at some point. But if that was actually a stolen election, it was probably because they needed time for the statute of limitations to expire. And they were thanking God that their people that they had implanted in the intelligence community were able to keep this covered up for the first 4 years while they were probably sitting on the edge of their seats ready to go to prison. And they needed another president to get in so that they could pass the statute of limitations so that they would not have to go to jail, which I'm going to get into after I look through the next couple of pages of this. So here you have where they covered up the real report stating that Russia had no involvement and didn't even have capability of having involvement. Then Obama directs them to create a fake report saying that Russia did have involvement and that Trump was an illegitimate president and try to overthrow his presidency before January 20th. And then they leaked it all out to the press, their fake report, so that the press would go and do all this crazy stuff. So you have IC leaks to the Washington Post, the NBC News, and they all just ran with it and lied to everyone constantly. So that's nice. So glad we have the media to lie to us constantly, and they're still doing it to this day. And then here you have basically this is a whistleblower email on January 6, 2017, just days before President Trump took office. DNI Clapper unveiled the Obama-directed politicized assessment, a gross weaponization of intelligence that laid the groundwork for a years-long coup intended to subvert President Trump's entire presidency. According to whistleblower emails shared with us today, we know Clapper and Brennan used the baseless, discredited Steele dossier as a source to push this false narrative, the intelligence assessment. Interesting. So now we have solid proof that Barack Obama did this. And of course, Hillary Clinton knew about this. Of course, she knows that it's fake. All of them have known that it's fake this entire time while hitting the campaign trails and saying that it was totally real. It's totes real. It's totes real. Thinking that the Democrats, this is why they opened the borders too, so that they could pad the census so that they never lost an election again. And thank God, now there's bills being introduced to do an emergency census count without illegal immigrants. That was their goal the whole time. We have to keep this covered up and we have to stay in control. Otherwise, we're all going to prison. Maybe. So now we have to look into the statute of limitations, what potential laws, what potential crimes that these could be, and whether or not anyone is actually going to be able to be held accountable regardless of what administration is in office. So I asked my assistant, Mr. ChatGPT, is there a statute of limitations on an ex-president of the United States directing the intelligence community to create a fake report in an effort to overturn an election? And I'm sure that all of the right-wing commentators on YouTube and Fox News and everything are all saying, Obama's going to prison. Comey's going to prison. All of these people are going to prison. Finally, we're going to get... No, you're not. And I'm going to tell you why. So there is a statute of limitations. And what this regards, and I'll just go down because I asked it more specifically about this particular incident. So documents declassified by Tulsi Gabbard show that in September and December 2016, the intelligence community assessed Russia had not altered vote counts, but then Obama and officials allegedly commissioned a revised January 2017 report contradicting earlier findings and based partly on the Steele dossier, which is completely made up and fake. So suppressing valid intel, commissioning a new IC assessment labeled as fabricated, leaking to the media a narrative asserting Russian influence. So here's the possible crimes. 18 USC 371, conspiracy to defraud United States. If officials conspired to obstruct lawful election certification, but the statute of limitations is 5 years for all of these, except for treason. So 18 USC 1001, false statements, false intel. 18 USC 1505, 1512, obstruction of justice and proceedings. 18 USC 2384, seditious conspiracy. So that's if aimed at overthrowing lawful authority, hard to prove intent. It's hard to prove the intent. However, I think we can see the intent very clearly, but the typical statute is still 5 years. And then treason, 18 USC 2381, there is no limit on treason. And this is what everyone is calling this, is treason. Treason requires levying war or giving material aid to enemies. Extremely strict threshold. Treason is very, very difficult to prove. And I don't think anyone is going to be found as treasonous in these cases. I don't think so. So the statute, so latest relevant actions. January 2017 release of contested IC assessment and media leaks. So that's the last known action that was taken in this conspiracy. Now, if it's found that there was participation by these people after that, then the clock restarts. So as far as right now, January 2022 is the end of this statute of limitations on all of these except for treason, which they would have to prove that Obama and the intelligence community actually aided another, like a foreign enemy against the United States or caused a war that negatively affects the United States, and that they intentionally did so to hurt the United States. And I don't think that necessarily it hurts democracy, what they did. That's against democracy and that's against the people. That is conspiracy. And if it was within that 5 years, of course, they would be able to be convicted if found guilty. But it's not necessarily treasonous because they didn't, I mean, they were trying to overthrow a presidency. They weren't necessarily trying to attack America, which we can consider in our opinions that this is an attack on America because we voted for Donald. Well, I didn't vote for Donald Trump in 2016 because I had Trump derangement syndrome. But that the majority voted for Donald Trump. So it's against democracy, but it's not necessarily factually 100% against the country as a whole. It's against Donald Trump and everyone who voted for him. So, but that's our opinion, and that's not how the law works. Unless you ask a Democrat, because their opinions is how the law works. So, unless the DOJ considers the documents part of an ongoing conspiracy, in which case the clock may start from the last overt act if they can prove that they had involvement beyond the shadow of a doubt. Or if any tolling applied, like concealment, officials outside the US. Now, concealment, who's been concealing all of this? Because that person, those people, could potentially be found liable and still be able to be charged with these crimes and taken to court. Ordinary counts, yeah, we already went over that. I don't need to go over that again. So most of the charges would have had to have been filed by January 22nd or 2022. I'm sure it says treason remains available, but is extremely difficult to prove and would require proving intent to betray via war or aiding enemies. So betraying our entire country via another entity that wants to harm us. So conspiracy can extend the statute beyond 5 years if the last overt act and furtherance of the conspiracy is closer than 5 years. So we know that they did this. And we also know that they're probably not going to be able to be held accountable because of the statute of limitations on this. In my opinion, these are serious. Why is the statute of limitations 5 years on trying to overthrow an entire election, going against the voters, essentially going against the majority of the country? Why would, I don't understand. Congress needs to get on this and change this. Congress is the only ones that can change this. They need to change this. This is insane. Now, if they change it now, it can't go back retroactive. So that's not how the law works necessarily. They can't change it now and then go after these people, because that would not be fair according to the law. Sometimes the law gets on my nerves, y'all, but it's a good thing we have it. I just wish that it made a little bit more sense, because 5 years of statute of limitation for overthrowing an election or trying to is absolutely absurd. These people could literally just be walking free for the rest of their lives. No harm done. So what message does that send to people getting into the government? You can do whatever you want as long as you can cover it up for 5 years and you didn't commit technically treason. We have our opinions about what treason is, but treason has a definition, and most of our opinions about what treason is not actually considered treason under the law. So that's unfortunate. Now I want to look at this $10 billion lawsuit, because that's crazy. Do I think that he's going to win the $10 billion? I don't know, because I don't think that he has. I don't know. Maybe he has actually. Maybe some people pulled out of some investments or something. I don't know, where maybe he did lose $10 billion, but he's going to have to prove that in order to get that, in order to win that amount. Okay, here we go. Look at this. All right. So plaintiff is obviously Donald Trump, and this is regarding the fake Epstein letter. If you guys haven't seen anything about that, the Wall Street Journal posted, and I'll just explain this now and I won't have to go through it when I get to it in this document. But the Wall Street Journal said that they had a letter that between Donald Trump and Epstein, which was the most absurd thing. I saw it posted on X. I think Gavin Newsom actually posted it. He reposted it because he's a fucktard. He's stupid. Like I don't know why he doesn't realize that he's making himself look even stupider than we all think that he is. But his dumbass reposted this. Um, so somebody made up a letter. All right, and it's the most absurd thing, and I'll read it when we get further down so you can see how absurd it is. But it doesn't sound like Donald Trump at all. It was signed Donald, which I don't think that he necessarily would say just Donald. He has a very particular signature, would say the whole thing. And there was like a stick figure drawn on it, and Donald Trump's signature was basically the pubic hair on this stick figure, which was a female with big boobs drawn on it. Yeah, it totally sounds like something that Donald Trump would do. No. So the Wall Street Journal called Carolyn Levitt and asked her about this, and Trump's legal team got back to them. They emailed. They emailed back and said, this is fake, this is defamatory, and if you knowingly publish this, knowing that it is defamatory with malice intent, then we're going to sue you for defamation. And they never responded to the White House, and they posted it. They published it on front page news. And then what happened was then all of these influencers started reposting it, causing more and more damage. They're counting how many impressions this got. And the impressions are not just from Wall Street Journal through their publication and their online presence, but it's also counting up further damage as all of these left-wing influencers are covering the fake story. So it's increasing the amount that he could potentially be awarded because the damages are increasing as more and more people continue to share this completely defamatory story. Yeah. These people are not very bright. They're just not very bright. As soon as I saw that, like, I was completely dismissed it because I was like, this is completely made up. Like, this sounds ridiculous. But here's the defendants. So we have News Corp. We have Dow Jones. So News Corp owns Dow Jones and oversees its corporate governance. Defendant Keith Rupert Murdoch. We all know who that is. Natural person over the age of what? Is a natural person over the age of 18 and upon a what? Okay, we know he's over 18. That's weird. Murdoch is, it doesn't say that in the other ones. That's weird. Isn't that weird? Murdoch is a director and majority owner of News Corp. Robert Thompson is, says that again, the chief executive officer of News Corp. Khadija Safdar is co-author of the numerous false, defamatory, and disparaging statements contained in the below defined article. Joseph Palazzolo is co-author of the numerous false, defamatory, and disparaging statements contained in the below defined article. Isn't that cute? That's just cute. So on July 15th, Palazzolo sent an email to the White House press secretary, as I just stated, and then the Trump administration emailed back and warned, do not do that, and they ignored it, and they did it anyway. Real smart, real smart. Well, I wonder if these people are fired yet. Let's see. So it says, it was titled, Jeffrey Epstein's friends sent him body letters for his 50th birthday album. One was from Donald Trump. The article was published in the Wall Street Journal as an exclusive. However, since publication, defendants have widely disseminated it to hundreds of millions of people worldwide. That's probably why it's $10 billion. Defendants falsely and maliciously stated that President Trump supposedly authored, drew, and signed a letter wishing Epstein happy 50th birthday. They elaborated on their false defamatory unsubstantiated and disparaging claims against President Donald Trump by claiming that he drew an outline of a naked woman, drew breasts on her, and signed his name below her waist, mimicking pubic hair. That's cute. So whoever created this letter is kind of creative, I guess. Next, defendants further maligned President Trump by wrongly and ludicrously contending that inside of the naked woman that he allegedly drew lies a typewritten note styled as an imaginary conversation between Trump and Epstein, written in the third person. So here's what it said. This is weird. Donald. Okay, hold on. Voice there. There was a voiceover. There must be more to life than having everything, the note began. Donald. Yes, there is. But I won't tell you what it is. That's fucking weird. Jeffrey. Nor will I, since I also know what it is. Donald. We have certain things in common, Jeffrey. Jeffrey. Yes, we do. Come to think of it. Donald. Enigmas never age. Have you noticed that? Jeffrey. As a matter of fact, it was clear to me the last time I saw you. Donald. A pal is a wonderful thing. Happy birthday. And may every day be another wonderful secret. Isn't that beautiful? Absolutely beautiful. Despite these unsubstantiated claims, however, the article does not attach a purported letter. So there's no evidence, does not identify the purported drawing, nor does it show any proof that President Trump has anything to do with it. Interesting. This is journalism today, y'all. This is journalism. Just make some shit up and send it out. Doesn't matter if we get sued for $10 billion. It really doesn't matter. We're just going to make shit up as long as it's against Donald Trump. It really doesn't matter. It's not journalism anymore. We're just making shit up. It's just how it works now. Hell, you can't even trust most of the freaking right-wing people online either, because even though they claim that they're the new true media, they're really not looking into anything. They're just repeating what they heard on Fox News or they heard Benny Johnson say. Tellingly, the article does not explain whether defendants have obtained a copy of the letter, have seen it, had it described to them, or any other circumstances that would otherwise lend credibility to the article, because they're not practicing journalism anymore. They have no evidence. They have no proof. In journalism, and I'm not a journalist, but in journalism, you're supposed to find the truth and you're supposed to present evidence of it. Yeah. Turns out you're not just supposed to make shit up. Yeah. Interesting. But you can just get away with it until you defame somebody, and then your ass is getting sued, especially if it's Donald Trump. So on the one hand, the article states it isn't clear how the letter with Trump's signature was prepared, and yet on the other hand, the defendants pass off the false, defamatory, disparaging, and inflammatory statements in the article as fact, falsely claiming without substantiation that President Trump is a friend, pal, or family of Epstein. That's cute. All right, so then all of these people, they names all the people, all the big influencers that started sharing it, you know, because they need to have evidence. There's how many impressions that they got so far, because I'm sure these people have not taken it down. The Lincoln Project, which is a piece of shit that always lies constantly. I'm sure you guys have seen it. I talk shit to them all the time. I think I talk shit to Colin Rugg also. He's an idiot. Keith Olbermann, I have definitely talked shit to this jackass. He's a fucking moron. Ken Klippenstein, talk shit to him all the time because he's a fucktard. Doesn't know shit. I don't recognize Seth Abramson. These people all get paid to just lie. They just get paid on the internet for just lying all the freaking time. It's so stupid. Stupid. So here you go. It was shared by more and more and more. And then down here, all of the above referenced articles, posts, and false statements have resulted in overwhelming financial and reputational damages to the president, expected to be in the billions of dollars due to the direct and implicit defamatory statements paraded throughout the article, which most of Donald Trump's money is invested. And I don't know, but he also has his company, so it could have potentially hurt him financially. He's going to have to prove that, though, like I said. So count one, defamation per se, which is obvious defamation, which this is obvious defamation. And then count two, defamation pure quad, or however you pronounce that, is the part where he's going to have to prove that he suffered financial loss because of this. So defendants, Dow Jones and Company, the Wall Street Journal, News Corporation, Keith, Rupert Murdoch, Robert Thompson, Khadijah, and Joseph. $10 billion, people. So there's some interesting lawsuits going around. Hopefully someone will be held accountable in some ways. I already told you guys, I don't think that any of the people from the Russia hoax are going to be held accountable. At least not the people that we want to be held accountable. In addition to the people who would probably be people that are still working for the FBI and all of those other departments, or people that were recently fired for, they would have to be found to have been covering it up after 2017 in order to bring this case to court. So that's interesting. And do you guys think that the $10 billion will be awarded? Usually on Trump's defamation suits, the plaintiff or the defendant usually settles for less money. That's probably why he's asking for $10 billion, because he knows that they're going to settle and he wants it to be more rather than less. But typically they'll settle because they probably won't spend $10 billion in legal fees, but they will spend more than they want to. So they'll probably settle for less. That's my opinion. What do you guys think? And what do you guys think about all the other stuff? Do you think anyone's going to be held accountable? And how do you feel about this? Leave a comment below. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any content. Leave a like, and I will see you on the next one.